Since the absolute dawn of consciousness, humanity has been completely haunted by one ultimate mystery. So today, in this explainer, we are going to attempt to map out the uncharted territory of the afterlife. We're going to explore the fascinating and sometimes terrifying ways cultures across time have tried to peek behind the veil. What actually happens when we die? Think about it. It is the single question that has driven human thought, built massive ancient civilizations, and even sparked modern scientific quests. Whether you view it as an absolute religious certainty, a deep philosophical puzzle, or the final scientific frontier, how we answer this one question fundamentally changes how we live our lives right now. To make sense of all this, here's our itinerary for the explainer. We'll start with models of the beyond, then ancient underworlds and judgments. After that, the linear path to eternity, followed by the cyclical path of rebirth, and finally, science, spirits, and the unknown. Okay, let's kick things off with Section 1, Models of the Beyond. When you really boil it down, most global beliefs generally split down two very different paths. On one side, we've got the linear model. This is super common in Abrahamic faiths. It's a straight timeline of one earthly life, a final judgment, and a permanent destination, like heaven or hell. Kind of a one-and-done deal. On the flip side, we have the cyclic model found in Indian religions. This is a cosmic try-again loop, where death is just a layover before continuous rebirth, all driven by the cosmic law of karma. Moving right along to Section 2, Ancient Underworlds and Judgments. Let's travel back to ancient Egypt. For them, the afterlife, definitely not a relaxing retirement. It was a rigorous, highly demanding obstacle course. It started with mummification just to anchor the soul. Then came the ultimate final exam in the Hall of Two Truths. Here, the jackal-headed god Anubis literally weighed your heart against the feather of truth. If you pass, boom, you enter the lush fields of Auru. But if you fail, your heart was devoured by a demon named Amit, and you were erased from existence entirely. So yeah, no pressure. Meanwhile, the Norse had a totally different map of eternity. For them, your destination wasn't really about your everyday morality, it was strictly determined by how you died. Half of those who died bravely in battle went straight to Odin's hall, Valhalla. The other half went to Freya's meadow, Folkvanger. But if you happened to die of old age or sickness, or if you were just a wicked person, you went downward into the realm of hell. It was a fiercely specialized, warrior-centric version of eternity. And then you've got the Greeks and Romans. They envisioned this sprawling underworld that literally required an entry fee. Your family had to bury you with coins just to pay Charon, the ferryman, to get across the river Styx. After you took a drink from the river Lethe to wipe all your earthly memories, judgment placed you in one of three spots: the sunny Elysian fields if you were pure, the agonizing depths of Tartarus if you were wicked, or, for pretty much everyone else, the completely neutral gray asphodel fields. Which brings us to Section 3, the linear path to eternity. So, stepping away from the simple heaven or hell binary, Catholicism brought in a really nuanced concept: purgatory. This is a temporary state of cleansing fire. Now, it's not the punishment of the damned. Actually, it's meant for those who are already saved, but just need some final purification before they can enter the absolute joy of heaven. It's basically a temporary stepping stone for spiritual refinement. Islam has an incredibly fascinating intermediate phase too, especially explored in Sufism, known as barzakh. Think of it kind of like a barrier or an isthmus, right between the physical and spiritual worlds. In this tradition, the afterlife journey begins right there in the grave. It's a waiting period where the soul actually gets a preview of its eventual fate, all before the physical resurrection on the Day of Judgment. And Jewish thought? Well, it's evolved a ton over the centuries. Early biblical texts spoke of Sheol, a dark, perfectly still place for all the dead, regardless of what they did in life. But over time, those concepts expanded massively to include Olam Haba, the ultimate world to come. There's also Gehenna, which is viewed mostly as a temporary place of spiritual reschooling rather than eternal damnation. And, surprisingly for some, mystical traditions like Kabbalah even introduce Gilgul, which is a concept of literal reincarnation. Now, that idea of reincarnation segues us perfectly into Section 4, the cyclical path of rebirth. So how does rebirth actually work? Well, Hinduism teaches that you are so much more than just a physical body. Think of your physical body, the water, the biomatter, like a temporary vehicle. When it eventually breaks down, the driver, your stream of consciousness, just keeps on going.
It's carried by the subtle body, holding your mental energy, and the causal body, which carries your deep karmic impressions. Together, they migrate into a brand new physical form. It's like swapping out cars for the same driver. Buddhism, on the other hand, takes a radically different approach. They teach that rebirth happens entirely without a permanent, unchanging self or soul. Instead, it's the pure momentum of your karma, the moral tone of all your past actions, that propels you into one of 31 distinct planes of existence. Depending on whether your actions were rooted in generosity and wisdom, or greed and hate, you could be reborn anywhere from the highest heavenly realms of deities all the way down to the realms of hungry ghosts. But here's the real kicker. How does this impact daily life? In these cyclic traditions, your mental state at the exact moment you die is basically the steering wheel for your next life. A final thought filled with anger or attachment, that pulls you toward a lower rebirth. And this is exactly why practices like mindfulness, deep meditation, and mantra chanting are so absolutely vital. It's literal training to keep your mind calm and focused, ensuring you have a smooth transition when that final moment hits. Finally, we arrive at Section 5, Science, Spirits, and the Unknown. Eventually, our sheer fear of the unknown pushed us out of temples and right into laboratories. We started applying the scientific method to the paranormal. In the Victorian era, you had the Society for Psychical Research hunting for evidence in dim seance rooms. By the early 20th century, doctors literally tried to weigh the human soul. And today, we have massive clinical studies operating inside intensive care units, actively searching for consciousness during cardiac arrest. Have you ever heard of the 21 grams theory? Back in 1901, a physician named Duncan McDougall placed dying patients on these highly sensitive industrial scales. He claimed to observe exactly a 21-gram drop in weight at the precise moment of death. He hypothesized that this was the actual physical mass of the human soul leaving the body. Now, sure, his methods lack modern scientific merit, and nobody has ever successfully reproduced it. But the whole idea of a 21-gram soul spread like wildfire and became a massive cultural obsession. Fast forward to today, and our tools are, well, a bit more advanced. Take the AWARE study, led by researchers like Dr. Sam Parnia. They study patients who suffer cardiac arrest, meaning these people are clinically dead. By carefully interviewing survivors and checking for objective markers in hospital rooms, researchers are making some absolutely startling observations. Observations that suggest consciousness might actually continue to operate even when the brain appears to have completely shut down. The data coming out of this is absolutely wild. 40%. Let that sink in. Nearly half of patients who survived cardiac arrest reported retaining some form of awareness during the time they were clinically dead, right before their hearts were restarted. Some even recounted vivid, out-of-body experiences that perfectly matched real, verified events happening in the resuscitation room while they were flatlining. It's a profound piece of data that fundamentally challenges our strict biological definitions of life and death. So stepping back from all this, a really clear pattern emerges, right? Whether we're talking about an ancient Egyptian priest carefully carving protective spells into a stone tomb, or a modern neuroscientist recording brainwaves in a sterile hospital room, our actions in the real world are entirely driven by the mystery of the afterlife. It's the great unknown that continuously pushes us to build, to discover, and to try to find meaning in everything we do. We've mapped out the human genome, we've mapped the distant stars. But the beyond? It's still completely elusive. Will our scientific tools ever pierce that final veil? Or is the sheer mystery of that uncharted territory exactly what makes our current, fleeting lives so incredibly valuable? Something to ponder as you navigate your own map of human existence. Thank you so much for joining